everyone, an incredibly emotional testimony today in Center County, Pennsylvania, as the now 18-year-old boy known as Victim 1 broke down during the trial of former Penn State assistant coach Jerry Sandusky. Just a reminder to our viewers that much of this story is graphic in nature. Victim 1 cried openly in court, by the way, as he detailed the alleged abuse, which began with fondling and led to oral sex. Later today, the jury heard from Penn State assistant coach Mike McQuarrie, who said he saw Sandusky in the shower with a boy around the age of 10 or 12 and heard, quote, skin on skin smacking sounds. That was back in 2001. Well, Sandusky, the defendant, says he's innocent of the 52 criminal charges he faces. Diane Dimond with Newsweek and the Daily Beast is covering this trial in Belmont, Pennsylvania. And Michael Smerconish is an attorney and, of course, an MSNBC political analyst. Diane, thank you so much. Tell us today about the testimony of Victim 1.
Well, this was the second accuser/victim, alleged victim that we've heard from. And I'll tell you, you've known me for a long time, Chris. I'm pretty hardened when it comes to covering trial stuff. But you know what? I have never seen testimony like this. I'm a mother. I know you're a father. This kid is 18 years old. He was 11 years old when he first met Sandusky, and the abuse began when he was about 12. Alleged abuse, let's say. I got teary. I have to tell you, I got very teary hearing this boy, and I call him a boy because he's so small, he's so frail. He walked in with stooped shoulders and his chin down, and you just wanted to hug the kid. He broke down completely twice. At one point, the jail matron had to come over and give him a Kleenex, and when she did, he buried his face, he buried his sobs, and frankly, the whole courtroom just sat there waiting for him to collect himself on 2 occasions. Didn't take any recesses. He just kept talking about how Jerry Sandusky, in his words, began to fondle him, then performed oral sex on him, and then expected him to do the same to Jerry Sandusky. It was very powerful stuff.
Much on Close-Up this morning, a tough day for the prosecution in the Michael Jackson child molestation trial. As we've been reporting, Jackson's accuser admitted under cross-examination that he had told a school official he was never molested. Diane Dimond is covering the trial for Court TV, and NBC News legal analyst Michael Cardoza is a defense attorney. Good morning to both of you. All right, Michael, let me start with you if I could. The cross-examination yesterday has been described as tough and punishing. We heard Michael Jackson saying after the day of testimony that Tom Mesereau did a great job, I guess is what he said exactly. What do you think?
He did do a wonderful job. There were times when it got a little bit redundant, when he got a little bit aggressive, and I'm not sure how the jury will take that, because remember, you got a 15-year-old boy on the stand, and Mesereau did lean on him a couple times, but he did make some awfully good points, and one of them was the dates of the alleged molestation. Remember, Jackson made a rebuttal video. In that rebuttal video, this victim talks in glowing terms about Jackson. When that victim first went to Tom Mesereau, but the district attorney Sneddon in Santa Barbara, he said, you know, those crimes took place before that video. That didn't make a whole lot of sense. Later, he changed it till after that video, so it squared a little bit with his glowing description of Jackson in that video. So that could be very damaging to them. I mean, you don't know when those crimes took place.
And Diane, they really, the defense attorneys, or Tom Mesereau, is really making a lot of use out of that so-called rebuttal video. But Isn't that sort of suspicious, the rebuttal video in and of itself?
Well, you know, I think it's pretty clear. The sister, the younger brother, and this boy have all admitted on the stand that they lied on that rebuttal video because, quote, they were told to do so by Michael's associates. So I think the only reason really that now we're seeing the rebuttal video for the third time, Katie, is so that the jury can really get a dose of the mother. The mother is a big problem in this case, and in the video, she's overly animated. She's got on bright red lipstick. She's sort of sing-songing her answers, and it does get grating, and I think that that's Tom Mesereau's goal.
So when will she appear on the stand?
Well, we don't know. I think after the boy, more cross-examination today and direct. He'll probably be done today. I think then there'll be a group of police officers take the stand talking about what they found at Neverland, specifically the porno magazines in the bedroom. And then after that, more corroborating witnesses, maybe the stewardesses, some people from Neverland. And I see the mother coming far down the line. I think this is a conscious decision by the prosecution to separate these children from their mother.
Let's talk about, Michael, a little more about these inconsistencies that were raised during the cross-examination. The fact that he was apparently a disruptive student, which did contradict what his sister had said, that his grandmother used sort of the same language to describe what he claimed, or the way he claimed Michael Jackson described certain sort of intimate acts, and that he told a school official that Michael never did molest him. I mean, it seems to me that if a kid is 12 years old, it's not that surprising that he might deny being molested to a school official.
Well, certainly that's how the district attorney will counter that. They'll put their expert on the stand to say that most children, most victims of molestation don't tell people. They just don't go out and announce it to the world. It takes them a while to get to somebody that knows the right questions to ask. But in cross-examination, in jury trials, the devil is in the details. So all these inconsistencies, if you take them and look at just one of them, maybe that doesn't mean a lot, but when you start to add them up, the jury may say, wait a minute, I have a reasonable doubt now. One of them doesn't give me a reasonable doubt, but the 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and so on up give me that reasonable doubt. And that's exactly what Mesereau's trying to do, make those contradictions add up. And when you talk about the fighting, go ahead.
Go ahead, Diane.
I was going to say, my sources that are close to the family tell me that the reason the boy was in the dean's office so often is because he was fighting because the kids were teasing him about being a homosexual after seeing him holding hands with Michael Jackson. So, like you said, Katie, it's not unusual for a 12 or 13-year-old boy, after being teased like that, getting in fights like that, to then come into the dean and when asked, did something bad happen, say, no, nothing happened.
We're almost out of time, but Diane, Jay Leno's name came up, and how significant was that?
Yeah. That, you know, somebody's lying here, Katie, and this could be a really crucial point. Tom Mesereau said in the opening, I'm going to tell you about a conversation Leno had with this boy where they were trying to, quote, hustle him. Yet yesterday on the stand, the boy said he'd never talked to his idol, Jay Leno, that he'd left a message for him, but he'd never spoken to him. So, boy, I can hardly wait to see how this one comes out, because somebody's not telling the truth.
All right, well, to be continued, I guess. Diane Dimond, Michael Cardoza, thank you both so much.
Michael Jackson's molestation trial continues today after the 15-year-old accuser finished his testimony on Tuesday, telling the jury he no longer respects the pop star nor likes him. Mike Taibbi is covering the trial for NBC News, and Savannah Guthrie for Court TV. Good morning to both of you. And we've heard, Mike, first of all, starting with you, that there's a lack of corroborating testimony and evidence in this case, and that much of this case rests on the credibility of this now 15-year-old boy. How credible has he been on the stand? You were in the courtroom for part of the time.
I was there for all of his testimony and all the redirect, and I have to tell you, Ann, that even though this boy is off the witness stand right now, he's not off the hot seat in the sense that his credibility is still going to be part of the discussion from here on. I'll give you a couple of examples of how the jury was invited to examine the inconsistent statements this boy made, the testimony that he gave that contradicted earlier statements he made, and the ways he has unquestionably changed his story. Two things. Number one, on his direct examination, he was asked, he talked about a statement he attributed to Michael Jackson in discussing a sexual act of male gratification. He said Michael told him that if men don't do it, they could reach the stage where they might go out and rape a girl. Well, he had to admit, and it was later confirmed, that the first time he said that statement, he attributed it to his grandmother in his first interview by police. In fact, the deputy sheriff to whom he told that story eventually testified before the grand jury that, yes, that's the person, the grandmother, to whom the boy attributed that statement. A key distinction. Also, in his earlier testimony, he had talked about, the accuser had, about 5 acts of molestation. Some of them occurring before the so-called rebuttal video, some of them occurring after. He affirmed that twice. On the stand, he only talked about 2 incidents and said all the molestation, alleged molestation, occurred after the so-called rebuttal video. A key point, particularly because in the rebuttal video and his statements, he extolled the virtues of Michael Jackson and said on the stand that when he said those things, he was telling the truth. So the jurors being invited to look at all these things, and they are taking notes.
So it's very interesting to think about how the jury is reacting to these apparent inconsistencies. Savannah, let me ask you that. Were you watching the faces of the jury? Do you have any idea how they were taking all this in?
Well, of course, it's like reading tea leaves, Ann, but I think we have a very attentive jury, and as Mike says, they take notes furiously, so I think that they are going to focus on some of these inconsistencies. But we have to take a step back, because we as reporters, we love to see inconsistencies. We just seize on them anytime we can. Jurors won't be deliberating this case for several months, and what they're going to take away is their gut feeling about this boy. Do they like him? Is he believable? Is he credible? And because of that, I think one of the biggest problems on cross-examination was how his demeanor changed. He was likable on direct, but he changed into kind of a sullen, sassy, evasive person on cross-examination, and that may be what the jurors take away ultimately.
Let's talk about this a bit more, Mike, because I think that what Savannah is saying is really true. Was this also your impression? Because I understand also you noted that there was a lack of emotion in his testimony.
Yeah, I think that's true, and there were a couple of things that just struck me. If I were a juror and a parent, as 10 of them are, of a child, I'd wonder why, after his discussion about the first act of alleged molestation, he said, the next night I was lying on Michael's bed watching television when it happened again. It's like a thud there. There's something missing there. But I think Savannah's correct, too, that as we go down the line, this trial's far from over yet, as we go down the line, it's basically going to be a question about whether or not they believe the basic story that this boy has told, which has been corroborated by his siblings. And don't forget, there's a problem for the Michael Jackson side, too, and that Jackson is going to have to be revealed as somebody who drinks, if not someone who has a drinking problem. And people on the jury who have experience with alcoholism may wonder, see, somebody who has a drinking problem and who may have these tendencies, because that's going to be the suggestion of the prosecution, could he have done something in those instances which sounds reasonable, like not a stretch? And there's so much that's going to be discussed about that we're a long way away from the point where some pundits were saying yesterday after the kid got off the stand, Tom Mesereau, Jackson's defense attorney, should have just said the defense rests. Nowhere near that right now, Ann.
The teenage boy at the center of the Michael Jackson trial is finished with his testimony, and some experts are saying the case against Jackson may also be finished.
Good morning, Harry. Michael Jackson's young accuser left the stand yesterday, and this star witness for the prosecution could become key to the pop star's defense. Jackson looked tense as he arrived for court, but the pressure was all on his young accuser. The teen, who Monday revealed he twice told a school dean the molestation allegations were false, tried to explain himself. He told DA Tom Sneddon he denied he was molested because, quote, all the kids were making fun of me in school, and I didn't want them to think it really happened. He said some students even called him, quote, the kid who got raped by Michael Jackson.
Kids are kids, and a lot of times, they're embarrassed. It's not unusual to have children lie on the stand.
But the teen was also unable to remember key details, contradicted his brother's and sister's testimony, and even had trouble recalling the alleged molestation.
He's supposed to be sympathetic and credible and likable, and he's supposed to wrap the whole case together, and I'm not sure he did.
Prosecutors then put a series of detectives on the stand. They were questioned about how the investigation proceeded.
law enforcement testimony is boring. It's boring in every case, and what you want to do as a prosecutor is intersperse it with dramatic testimony so that the jury is awake through the whole trial.
Even the teen accuser left the stand without any new fireworks, telling the jury he didn't like Jackson anymore and that he wasn't, quote, deserving of the respect I was giving him as the coolest guy in the world. As he left court, Jackson seemed more bothered by his back troubles.
I'm feeling pretty good. In pain. You're in pain still? Yes. Very much. Your back? Yes.
Investigators continue on the stand today. The next witness up perhaps could be a civil attorney the family went to before they reported the molestation allegations to police. That attorney represented another Jackson accuser back in 1993 who got a multi-million-dollar settlement from the singer.